She endured horrendous domestic violence, including an attempt on her life. She's an actor, an author, a publicist, and a forensic cleaner. She's here to tell her story on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is brought to you in part by Colonial Metals Group. Protect your family's financial future with gold and silver. Their level of professionalism makes it easy for you to learn everything you need to know about preserving all you've worked for. Call Paul and his staff at Colonial Metals Group to learn how to get started. Call 800-898-1841. 800-898-1841. That's 800-898-1841, or go online to colonialmetalsgroup.com/LET radio. Content is from Georgia. We have Constance Payne on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Constance is, a very, very interesting story, an accomplished story, which you'll find out in just a few moments. She survived domestic violence, including a murder attempt by her now incarcerated ex-husband. She's a forensic cleaner. We'll talk about that. Trust me, we will talk about that. She's become an actor. She's an author. She's an executive producer. And her website is ConstancePayne.com. Constance, first, thanks for being a guest on the show. Secondly, thanks for being willing to tell your story. It's very much appreciated.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate you just being able to, get the message out there and, moving forward in life. It's been, I hate to say the word journey, but, journeys are supposed to be fun.
Look, what's the old saying? And I hate this saying. Life is like a foot race. It doesn't matter how you start the race. It matters how you finish. It's the last half of our life that matters the most. The first half, we don't even have a whole lot of influence over what happens the first 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, because we're just trying to figure it out.
Right. You got parents telling you what to do. Show up to church, you go to school, shut your mouth, do whatever, do your homework, go to bed. It's not like you had a lot of choices. I'd even say for many of us, the first 16, 15 years of our lives, we didn't get that. And then we go into a situation where we start thinking, I don't know about you, Constance, we start thinking we got it figured out. We married that love of our life and things are going to be great. And they weren't for you. I got to change subjects very, very quickly before we get into your story. Constance Payne. I love that name. It sounds like Constant Pain.
I was born sideways with talons.
Here's the old saying. I'm sure maybe you're a lot younger than me. You've not heard it. That which does not kill you makes you stronger. If that were true, I'm not saying it's not, but if that were totally true, I'd be able to bench press a Cadillac by now, but I can't.
Right. It is true in a sense, but I'm really tired of life testing me because, my husband trying to kill me was not the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life. It doesn't even make the top 3.
I would suspect that would be the case.
Yeah. And just trying to figure out what love is not has been its own adventure, I suppose.
Well, one of the things I tell friends of mine that have, and my daughter's in her mid-30s now, and we've had this conversation before, but I tell them if they have young teenage boys or daughters, to tell them to install a zipper on their chest over their heart and make sure there's a Velcro flap, because that thing's going to get ripped out many times before they get it down and decide what they want in life. And here's what's inspiring about your story. All the bad stuff that happened, you kind of took that journey of, and I hate that term, that journey of building the life you want. This isn't what you wanted before, but what do you got now? Are you there yet? Or are you on the way?
I'm on the way, definitely. I'm an actor and I'm a forensic cleaner. My business is doing good. I'm also part owner of an audiovisual company, and that is starting to take off and get some momentum. I've got some big movies coming up too. I get booked all the time for things, and there'll be a movie I'm actually helping to executive produce over in LA later this year. So I have a good role in that one, and I guess when you're a go-getter and you have so many goals, you're never there.
Right.
Like, I'm never going to feel accomplished. I'm always going to feel like I got to do this other thing. And there's not enough hours in the day. And I've just had to come, talk nicer to myself and just say, you're always going to feel like you're behind, Constance. Like, you're always going to feel that way.
I'm glad you brought that talk nicer to yourself. And I said to someone the other day, actually, this is on the Clubhouse audio app. If you don't have it, download it. It's free. And check us out on Breakfast of Champions and Podcast Pros and other ones. I'm there all the time. But one of the things I said was, all the people have said bad things about me in my life. There's no one who talked worse to me than me. And I would not tolerate that behavior from anybody else, ever. Even as a kid, I had to learn to be, I don't want to say gentler to myself. That's another overused phrase, but more realistic at least.
Yeah, and I definitely feel you there because, with doing great things and accomplishing goals, you're always going to have that one out there that wants to talk some, or you know what I mean? Like, there's always going to be that.
Right.
And like you said, I mean, I am my own worst enemy. So there's nothing that anybody can say that's actually going to hurt my feelings because I talk way worse to myself.
I'm the same way. And here's another thing, and we'll get to your story in a moment, but I'm having such a great time talking with you. And here's one of the things I like about Constance. It's a real conversation. This is not some made-up, phony baloney. Oh, this is the Hollywood press release where we have the questions ahead of time. That's not it at all. So when you were 12, 13 years old as a young tweener, teenager, did you ever see yourself doing what you're doing today?
I grew up really, really rough in Northwest Indiana. And I'll have to say, the first time I wanted to kill myself, I was 12 years old. Like, I was just being so seriously abused by my mother. School was rough. I was getting it from all angles. And as a kid, you don't really have a whole lot of options. And I remember I was standing on a building in Chicago, and I was about to take a swan dive off of that. And I heard this little voice, like right over my shoulder, my right ear, and it said, "You have to make it through this because you will be doing something great with your life." And I took my step back down, and I continued to endure my mother's abuse until I ran away when I was 16.
Right.
And then, and then I went back. It took me 20 years to go get my brother out of there. But he's living his best life now. My brother's legally blind. And so that was like another thing, like in going back and forth and dealing with the courthouse and my ex, trying to kill me and making sure he stayed where he belonged. I, saved my brother. Our grandfather died. It was a really rough year. 2022 was very hard.
So when did life start getting better for you? What age do you think? Wait a minute. I realize this. I just made a fatal mistake. Never ask a woman her age. My mother is still 29. I'm 65. I don't know how that's possible, but she's 29. She's much younger than me.
I don't mind because I look good for my age. I'll be 38 this year.
That's still young. You're a pup. You're way young. I mean, goodness sakes. But here's what I'm getting at. And a lot of people will get into this, well, I don't have a horrible trauma story. Again, it's the last half of your life that really matters. Yeah, America loves a rags to riches story where the underdog overcomes. And in a lot of ways, Constance is a good example of that. So you said you started from rough beginnings in Indiana. And would you say your teenage years and your early 20s were rough as well?
Yes, it was very, very rough. Honestly, my life kind of started getting better in my first marriage, even though my first ex-husband was also very verbally abusive, sometimes physically, but it was more like verbal. And, he made my life a living. And honestly, when I filed for divorce after I was done, I was surprised that he was upset. Like, it was really, really weird.
He obviously wasn't having a good time. If he's having a good time, he wouldn't be acting like that. We're talking with Constance Payne. This is a Law Enforcement Talk Radio show. We got so much more to talk about, including surviving domestic violence, a murder attempt on her life. She's a forensic cleaner, an actor, an author, and much more. Website is ConstancePayne.com. You can find us on Facebook. Look for and like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. I believe in having a substantial percentage of my financial future secured with gold and silver. Contact Paul and his staff at Colonial Metals Group to learn how to protect your financial future at Colonial Metals Group. You can set up a safe and secure self-directed IRA where you can access your funds, your assets, no matter what. Call 800-898-1841, 800-898-1841. That's 800-898-1841, or go online at colonialmetalsgroup.com/LET radio.
How do you start your day? After grabbing a cup of coffee, I grab my phone and open the Clubhouse social audio app and go right to the Breakfast with Champions rooms. I get what I need to start my day the right way in the Breakfast with Champions rooms on the Clubhouse social audio app. Best of all, the Clubhouse social audio app is free, and so are the Breakfast with Champions rooms. So download the Clubhouse social audio app and join me in the Breakfast with Champions rooms.
Return our conversation with Constance Payne on the Law Enforcement Talk radio show. Her website is Constance Payne, ConstancePayne.com. Before we went to break, Constance, you're talking about growing up rough, being suicidal as a tweener or young teenager, getting married. The first marriage was not working out the way you thought it was going to be. You filed for divorce, and you said before we went to break, he was kind of surprised.
Yeah, I thought he would be happy. You know, I was told I was the problem, you know, the whole time. So it was a really odd experience. And he ended up screwing me over really bad in our divorce. And like as I was going through the divorce process, that's when I met my second husband. And, you know, he was the most beautiful man I've ever seen in my life. Like, you know, what I knew then at that time and what I know now are completely different things.
Right.
But, you know, because of my emotional state, I would have jumped in the arms of anybody that was nice to me.
Right.
And that here he was, this big, beefy, beautiful man, and he was nice to me. So I had no idea he was a drug addict when I first got with him. He was addicted to Xanax. I found that out about 2 years after we were married, because I had thought at that point that he was just lazy. You know, he would go to work and he'd come home and he'd eat food and fall asleep. And there was like no extra chores, no doing anything to, you know, to help me out or any type of, you know, hobby or business stuff. Like that was, you know, he just went and cut hair and he came home and he fell asleep. And then I had gotten a part-time job at one of the barber shops that he was working at, because he was a master barber. And that's when I started noticing like he was getting like really hazy at work, like falling asleep standing up, taking over an hour to do somebody's hair. And, you know, I'd always respected his privacy, you know, and never looked through his phone or anything like that, because I didn't like that in my first marriage.
Right.
You know, my first ex, he would just go through my stuff and I'm like, it was very confusing. He just trying to make an argument. So I broke my code and I went and I looked in his phone. And that's when I started seeing like all these messages and all this money coming in through his Venmo and talking about candy. You know what I mean? That was like his code word for Xanax or whatever. Right. So I had gotten him sober and he swore up and down he'd never do it again. He's like, oh, this is a new thing in my life. I have anxiety and I accidentally got addicted. I'll never do it again. And then about a year goes by and I started noticing signs of his using again. You know, stealing petty from the grocery store and, you know, stuff like, you know, falling asleep while standing. Those are very clear signs. And, you know, got him sober again. And at this point... By
the way, we should add in here, you didn't sign up for getting someone sober.
No, absolutely
you signed up
not.
You signed up to be a wife and spouse. That was it. And it's not like...
Yeah,
look,
I wanted a partner.
There's rehab facilities. There's detox facilities that cost a lot of money to go to get sobered up for these things. It's a big process. It takes a lot of work. But if the other person is not willing to do the work, they're not going to get sober. They're not going to stay sober.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the most terrifying thing about this whole deal, because all he had to do was go to rehab. I told him, I was like, I'll take care of all the bills. Like, just go get sober and be the man that you say you are. Just do it. Do it for you. Do it for us. And he just refused. And he's like, no, I can't be locked away. I can't be locked away.
Yeah, you can. I did it a long time ago. I'm okay.
I mean,
I survived it.
Exactly. You admitted to yourself you had a problem,
right,
and you corrected it.
Right. Well,
and,
here's the thing.
I got
Constance, I was married. I had 2 young daughters. I owed it to them. It's not a matter of what I can or cannot stand. This goes early in the conversation. That which does not kill me makes me stronger. And you've been through enough stuff. I've been through enough stuff. But they didn't deserve this. They didn't sign up for this. I needed to get my act together, just like your ex did. But that's not what happened, is it?
No. And it even, I had just gotten tired of it, after all the relapsing. The last year that I was with him before the shooting was the worst. It was like every day there was something new. And I'm just trying to go to work and go home. At that point, in that year, he crashed every single vehicle that we owned in the last quarter, twice, some of them. And, his parents were useless in helping me. They were just enabling. They're like, oh, he's fine. He just needs to go to work. I'm like, he needs rehab.
Right.
And if you guys don't, if you're just enabling his behavior that he doesn't need it and just needs to go to work, the guy can't keep a job. He keeps getting fired because he's high. And, just trying to communicate with people that supposedly love him, it was a nightmare. But
see, here's what I take from that conversation. You spend a lot of time trying to do this. You're not Superwoman. You're not God. You can't make somebody do something, can you?
Oh, no, absolutely not. And that's the thing is, I had, at that point, I already started making plans to file for divorce. It was right after we bought the house, and which I purchased. Okay, right. And so right after that, I had to go to a movie premiere down in Florida, and I went by myself because I wasn't going to fake the public image thing. I'm not going to lie to people. Things are not good.
Right. And
I will represent myself alone because I'm about to be single. And I come back, and he had robbed the house. And I had a TPO on him because he had put his hands on me about a month prior. And when he did, I was actually thankful because I was like, okay, great. He can go sit in jail and get sober because he's just not doing it.
That TPO stands for what? We have different terms in different states.
Oh, temporary restraining orders.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Protective. All right. Temporary protective orders.
Gotcha.
Sorry, TPO. So he wasn't supposed to be at the house, especially while I was gone. So I come back, he robbed the place, and again, I was kind of thankful. I was like, okay, great. I can get warrants taken out on him and force him to go to rehab because I will work with it. I told him. I have all the messages. I'm like, just go to rehab and I will get the charges dropped. Just do it. And he made the decision in the middle of his workday at 1 p.m. to hop on his motorcycle and try to kill me. He had threatened me a lot the night prior. Most of it was just verbal and on the phone, and I can't do anything about that. You can't call the cops because of, it's he said, she said.
Right.
But then he finally texted me. He's like, I shoot to kill, ha ha. And he said, I'm a Hell's Angel, and you don't mess with our crew, and blah blah blah. And that was
first sign. I want people to realize this. Mafia and Hell's Angels are 1% motorcycle clubs. Real members don't ever tell you they are.
Oh, absolutely.
They never tell you
that was part of his delusion.
When people say that, it's usually that they're not real well balanced.
Yeah. I mean, he's totally off his rocker because when he would start saying stuff like that, that's when I knew he was in his blackout phase.
Right.
Because, he would eat so many pills, probably 14 to 18 Xanax pills in a day. And my friend that was a nurse, she's like, I don't know how he's still alive.
Look, I don't know how people can function. I really don't, Constance. And we're going to take a short break. We'll return to the conversation. We're going to talk more about the murder attempt. We'll talk about being a forensic cleaner and how she built a life that she has today. Because there's a lot more heading her way in a Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. You can find us on Facebook. You want to be a guest on Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast. And be sure to click really quite simple. Before you get into this notion that I'm not a cop, I wasn't a cop, I don't have something to contribute. Well, the show is about investigating crime. That's one aspect of it from the real life perspective of those who did it. And then it's also about trauma, how trauma impacted them, often crime-based, but not always. Our guests quite often are law enforcement officers, other first responders, military, victims of crime, their spouses, or survivors, talking about how trauma impacted them, what happened, how it affected their lives, and how they rebuilt their lives after. If you want to be a guest, just contact me. It's really simple. Send an email to jay@letradio.com. That's jay@letradio.com. Or go to letradio.com and the Contact Us page, and you can get me right there as well. Back to our conversation with Constance Payne on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Constance survived domestic violence. She survived a murder attempt, which we're going to talk about in a few moments. She's a forensic cleaner, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, what that means and why no one wants to do that job. She's an actor and author, executive producer, and heavily involved in books. Her website is constancepayne.com. It's ConstancePayne.com. Before we went to break, Constance, you're talking about this guy became unhinged. He was using lots of Xanax, lots of pills, and he was threatening your life. And he got on his motorcycle. And was he heading your way?
Yeah, he was heading to our house to come and kill me, and I was sitting on the couch, and that little voice that I told you that was over my shoulder when I was 12 years old, that little voice came again, and it said, "You need to get out of here. You're going to be late for your meeting," because I had to go to a production meeting that day. And so as I was pulling out of the neighborhood, he was like coming in. Like, I didn't see him, but I had heard the motorcycle, and I didn't put two and two together until I went home that night, and all the furniture was like moved, every like what I had left anyways from the robbery. And then I seen one bullet hole in the wall. And after I was looking at it, I was in shock, and I called the cops, and they came by, and they found it was 4 bullets that he lit up the house. Uh-huh. And it was my gun that he used. He had stolen that from me in the robbery, and that was just, I couldn't wrap my head around any of that. Like, I was in shock for a good month straight before I even cried. I went to work the next day.
The next day?
The next day.
By the way, it's Tuesday. I'm going to go do my Tuesday thing.
Yeah, and I had a gun in my face that day. It was for acting. I was on a set of a horror film, and here I've got a prop gun in my face, and my ex just tried to kill me the day before, and I kind of had like an out-of-body experience almost, just kind of running the scene through my head of what would have happened if I had stayed 5 more minutes.
And how old were you when this occurred?
This was February 2nd of 2022, so I was 35.
Okay. So you're still a relatively young person when this goes on, and I got to ask this. I know that the answer is obvious. When you got married the second time to this guy, did you ever think that he would turn on you the way he did?
Oh, no. I thought he was the love of my life.
That's what I'm getting
he said
at.
all the... Yeah, like I never in a million years. But, that last year before the shooting, in my conversations with him, I said, look, you got to get sober or you're going to end up killing yourself, someone else, or in prison. And I saved quite a few people from getting killed by him. And trying to get him, like, in a mental institution, picked up, that was... I wasn't able to do that either,
right.
Being 2 people in this state. So it was just an absolute nightmare. And I just never thought in a million years that I would be the person that he was going to kill.
And the reason I ask you that, Constance, is people tend to think, she kind of brought it on herself. I'm not saying you did, but some people are like, how could you not see the signs? You didn't see any of the signs, and you're just trying to be a supportive, caring spouse, and things really went south for you.
Oh, absolutely. And I've had people straight up ask me, too. They're like, well, what did you do to deserve it?
That's the thing I'm getting at.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what would somebody have to do that is relevant to kill them? Please tell me what, because I didn't cheat on the guy. Yeah, like, I didn't do anything but save his life.
One of the things that happened to me, Constance, as a police officer, is when people try to shoot me and kill me, I'm like, you don't even know me. The things going through your head are not rational. At some point, it's like, you don't even know me. Why are you trying to kill me? That makes no sense at all.
None whatsoever.
It's
like,
kind of hard not
to
take
prison.
it personal either, is it?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It truly broke my heart.
Yeah.
It truly broke me. I was very, because of the way I grew up, I have abandonment issues, and like every day that final year that I was with him, I was just running around, chasing him around town, trying to, save other people, trying to make sure that he was okay. And then he was gone. Yeah. And while I was thankful he was in jail, it took them a week to pick him up, because he was threatening suicide by cop. And that was another huge thing. For me emotionally, I'm like, he's going to blow his brains out, and I'm going to have to go and clean that up.
See, now you're talking about forensic cleaning, which we'll get in a moment, because I gotta change the tone of your conversation just a bit. When I was a young kid, I'd say 18, 19 years old, I drove a taxi cab in Norfolk, Virginia, growing up. And I picked up a woman at the airport late at night, and she's like, I need to go to Hampton Roads, and my husband's supposed to pick me up. And the radar bells were already going off. We get to her house, and his car's in the driveway, but all the lights are off. Now my radars are ringing big. She's like, can you take the suitcases indoors because something's not right? I walk in, and the guy had shot himself 2 days before and was dead, obviously. The first time I'd seen something in my life, and I don't think you ever quite get that image out of your head, but you do this every day.
Yeah. And you emotionally close yourself off, and you continue. I mean, the thing that's rough about being a forensic cleaner, it's most people don't care about their people, and that makes it, as sad as it is to say, but that makes it easier for me to do my job.
Right.
And, but here and there, when you do come across people that care about their people, those are the really rough days. And that kind of, like after the shooting and everything, like I said, like I went to work the next day, like on a film set. And then I cleaned up, a suicide 2 days later. The guy blew his head off with an AK-47. It was one of the worst cleanups of my life. And I felt like I was living in this surreal dream, and, and just praying that everybody would be okay, that he wouldn't kill himself, that he wouldn't kill any police officers, that all of this could just happen safely. And then I got a call when I was at the grocery store from the lead investigator, and I just broke down crying after he told me that, everybody was safe. And I was like, thank God.
And you said earlier in the conversation that this kind of stuff broke you. From what I sense, you don't stay broke long, but when you were broke or broken, you said when he was arrested, you broke down in tears. How long of a period of time did it take you to say, I'm not saying you're over this at all, but how long of a period of time did it take you to say, I'm going to get from point A to point C?
It's that's difficult to answer, because I first started like marking my calendar every day that he was in jail, and just looking at it and just, telling myself that he's in jail. And it took the sheriff's office like 6 months to wrap up the investigation. And then, telling myself, you have to get used to seeing the word Matthew, because that was his name. And, other people are named that name, and you have to deal with it. And, and then I would go to places that me and him used to go, and I would create a new memory by myself. Because
that's smart.
You have
that's
to
really
go to the
smart.
Grocery store.
Yeah,
like you have to go to the grocery store. You have to go to the store. You can't just hide in your house. You have to continue. And so I did a lot of stuff like that. And every month I would kind of do some self-reflection and reevaluation. And I'm like, okay, I feel better than I did last month. So every month, even though it's been like 2 years now, a little over 2 years, I'm still recovering.
To be honest with you, Constance, 2 years is not a long period of time. And we returned our conversation with Constance Payne on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. We're going to delve more into her, and I'm air quoting, journey after this. And we'll talk about being a forensic cleaner, her acting career, and more. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Don't go anywhere. I promise you. We'll be right back. Our sponsor, Colonial Metals Group, helped me with my goal of protecting my financial future. Being at the whim of the stock market or the current administration doesn't make me feel safe or secure, but having a self-directed IRA where I can safely store gold and silver, assets that have stood the test of time, no matter what the economy or government policies are, makes sense to me. Call Paul and his staff at Colonial Metals Group to get more information. Call 800-898-1841. 800-898-1841. That's 800-898-1841, or go online to colonialmetalsgroup.com/LET radio.
I start my day a couple of times a week with the Breakfast with Champions rooms, which are free, and on the Clubhouse app, which is also free. I get motivation, guidance, and inspiration for my personal and professional life. Plus, I get to interact and even ask questions from celebrities, all in the Breakfast with Champions rooms in the Clubhouse app. The app and Breakfast with Champions is free. Download the app today, and I will see you in the Breakfast with Champions rooms on the Clubhouse app.
Return a conversation with Constance Payne on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. She's in Atlanta, Georgia area. Her website is Constance, CONSTANCE, Payne, PAYNE, and it's ConstancePayne.com. She survived horrendous domestic abuse, domestic violence, a murder attempt. Her ex is now in prison where people do that stuff. That's where they belong. She's an actor and author, executive producer, and a forensic cleaner, which means cleaning up crime scenes, which we'll talk about. I got to ask you this. My dog, Doc, who's a Rottweiler, is sick, and he's got, let's just say, digestive issues going on. He had an accident in the house, and I'm cleaning up, and I'm gagging. I'm one of the worst you could ever have. My wife is gone. She's at work, and I'm just taking care of business. So some of the crime scenes I've been on as a police officer were absolutely horrendous, especially ones where we had like DOAs, suicide, whatever it might be, and they were in a locked-in room in the summer heat for 3, 4, 5 days. You know exactly what I'm talking about. There's no way you can get that odor out of you. You're just not doing it, and it takes every your power to do your job. How do you keep that mindset where you just say, I'm going to go do this because I got a job to do?
I got to pay my bills, and that's another thing about being an actor. I have to be self-employed, and I have 10 different occupations that I do that all lead into my businesses, because you can't just, if I book a movie role, I can't just request a week off of a 9-to-5 job. People
Right.
won't put up with that. So I don't have any other choice.
Do you walk into some of these crime scenes that go, and usually the forensic cleaner, and a lot of people think police clean up. They don't. They don't. As a matter of fact, the body, if it's a questionable death, the coroner or a morgue will come pick them up, and there's this horrible crime scene afterwards. People think that we clean them up. We don't. It's up to you to clean them up. And there are usually lots of bodily fluids, lots of things going on, and none of it is desirable, especially for a guy with a weak stomach like me.
Oh, yeah, none of it smells good. And then, there'll also be calls that I respond to, let's say somebody blew their head off and they're also a hoarder. So they're living with all this trash and filth. And, those are cleanups that might take a week. And I have to keep going back and going back and going back and make it look like nothing happened.
Do you ever ask yourself, why me? Why am I doing this?
No.
Come on, you said that really. You kind of question yourself. Oh, maybe every now and then.
I was thinking. I've never really thought about that. I'm a very mission-oriented person. So when I get a call to service, I just do my job, no matter if it's, a suicide cleanup, hoarding cleanup, or for my AV company and, doing installs of LED walls. It's just a call to service. It's just a job.
I'm glad you look at it that way. It's a call to service. One thing that, and it sounds corny, one thing gets me out of me and my mind, which I call a bad neighborhood. You don't want to go there by yourself, because having too much free time, I wind up thinking about stuff and remorseful things from the past, or worries about the future. And I just can't afford to do that. So you said to be of service. The more I put myself to thinking how I can serve those around me, the better off I am. How about you?
Yeah, I believe in that, and just making sure that I'm helping to serve the correct people, and noticing the signs of people who are con artists that are just like using me to have a ride along my coattails, or whatever it is that's in them, and like looking after my brother. My brother's legally blind. And, I enjoy taking care of him. His happiness makes me happy, because as hard as my life has been, my brother has had it so much worse.
Right.
And so much worse. And seeing him smile and be happy, because he was getting ready to put a bullet in his head right before I finally saved him. And now he's living his best life. And that's on my hardest days. That is what I do. I look at my brother and I look at my dogs, and I am thankful.
Last question, then I promise we'll go into your acting career, your website, all that stuff. And I'm not sure quite how to ask this. Maybe because I just lost my train of thought. What I'm getting at is, one of the things I'm on my second marriage, and my wife is on her second marriage, and we've been together 25 years or 27, and happily married, and it's something that's a priority for both of us. But we've both established that we won't tolerate nonsense from the other person. It's just not going to happen. Have you found your attitude towards relationships and intimacy to be changed as a result of everything you've been through?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I'm suspicious of everybody. Like, honestly, I don't get very often, but I kind of...
You put out those vibes, don't mess with me?
Yeah, I make myself very unapproachable. And if somebody does come up and talk to me, that is my first red flag. I was like, this person... they've got some issues.
Yeah.
As odd as that may sound, but I'm very happy being alone now. Right after the shooting, like the first year, it took a minute to get used to sleeping alone, and now I enjoy it very much. I'm
glad you did. And the reason I say this is, again, I have daughters, and they're in their mid-30s now. And one of the things that we've always stressed to them, my wife, their mother also, is that build the life you want, and then you decide who you want to share that life with, not the other way around. Don't be waiting for someone to pick you. You pick who you want.
Absolutely. And have a standard, like I should have. The biggest red flag about my last ex, he came into the relationship with a motorcycle and a duffel bag. I'm a homeowner and I own my car, and he didn't even own his motorcycle. So, just trying to find somebody that is at where I'm at in life. And is, that'll be a journey in its own, but I'm not trying to, quote unquote, fill the position of a husband. You know what I mean? Like, I'm focusing on me. Good. And my career.
I'm glad you brought up your career too, because I did go to your website earlier, Constance Payne, and I saw some clips from some movies you've been in. And first of all, we don't get a chance to talk to actors very often. And when we do, it's awfully usually staged. It's not a real conversation. We talked about that earlier. I'm glad you're not doing that. But some of your roles, I got to ask, after having talked with you, are some of your roles inspired by your own life that you're kind of like, I'm not tolerating this and I'm going to get revenge?
Oh, absolutely. I'm one of the nicest people you'll ever meet in your life. But I've had a lot of horrible things happen to me, like the way people have talked to me, yell at me, bully me around, and I've had to make myself not only emotionally stronger, but physically stronger in order to do my job and protect myself. So, all my characters, they do have a little bit of me in them, or, think about a certain part of my life. If I need to be emotional, and I don't get to play the victim very often because I'm a big little lady.
You're a big little lady. It's like giant shrimp, isn't it? It's a bit of an oxymoron.
Yeah. So I'm mostly playing like these mean, in your face characters, and I will knock you out.
Yeah. Well, that's we have a standing joke with my daughters. I bring them up. They're two people you do not. They're really nice. They're great people, but they're both over 6 foot tall, and they got some meat on them, and they will hit you. They're not going to stand around and wait for you to hit them. So they're not the people you want to mess with. And we have a standing joke in our house. I'm not the one. My wife says that. I say that. My daughters say that. You could be having a bad day. You decide to take it on somebody, but trust me, I'm not the one you want to come after. So we're almost out of time. I want to just focus on your book, your website, because can people get all the information about your acting, the books, and all that stuff there is ConstancePayne.com?
Yes, and links to all my other social media stuff. I'm mostly on Facebook, so if you want to give that a follow, that really helps. But that's really where I post almost daily my adventures in life. I'm always flying somewhere for, to do a movie or go to an event. Like, I travel a lot, and it's fun, but it is a lot of work.
Right.
A lot of people, they think that this is just this carefree, everybody loves your lifestyle, and there is so much work on the back end. But when it is showtime, baby, it doesn't matter what happened to me yesterday, what I saw at work, or what I've been through. It is showtime.
When it's showtime, you better bring it, because there's no second act. Constance, thanks for bringing it and telling your story on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Very much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate that.
I'd like to thank our guests for coming on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is a nationally syndicated weekly radio show broadcast on numerous AM and FM radio stations across the country. We're always adding more affiliate stations. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, which is always free, please do me a favor and tell a friend or two or three. I'll be back in just a few days with another episode of the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.